It's a real intergenerational thing, the club. The club's a real proper historic cultural entity. It comes from somewhere. It's not just put together by marketing people or someone decided to create a team called this or that. Hi, I'm Perry Keys and this is my South story. I'm a musician, singer-songwriter and a lifelong Rabbitoh fan. I sort of spent the first sort of years of my childhood down in Redfern, which was in what they call a block now. And in those days, there was a lot of sort of abandoned houses and factories, and the old Everleigh Railway Yards was empty of a weekend. So there was a lot of places, if you're a young kid, to get lost in. So it was great fun. Mostly came through the pubs of Sydney. So I've mostly performed with the same sort of people and the sort of people that did well in that. Someone like Tim Friedman from the Whitlams, Dave McCormick. I've had people like Missy Higgins do cover my songs. Mostly indie sort of artists, really. Doing a brace of shows with Tim Friedman in late November, early December, and just released my 5th album, and did some shows in Sydney and in Melbourne and other parts of Australia, and I'll be doing more early in the next year.
Cleveland Street shuffle shining into the mighty roar. We were walking through the twilight the day John Sattler broke his jaw.
Well, it's a song about, it's sort of a song that sort of marries the past with the present. And as I said, growing up down in Redfern, it was a very strong community, very old working class community, and one of the strengths of working class community is their ability to create a culture that is really centred around community, about people doing things together, and I think football is a natural extension of that. And it's really, in a way, a song more about my family than say, than John Sattler. But it sort of celebrates that old working class culture. My grandfather worked in a tannery at Botany for about 30 years, and he worked 6 days a week, and his day off was Sunday, and he would take me up to Redfern Oval to watch guys like, Eric Sims and Paul Sade and Georgie Piggins and Bobby McCarthy, guys like that running around. And I thought, I was thinking about him, and I was just thinking about the things that were important to the community and held them together, and how they were disappearing over time, and how much the community here has changed over the years, and how some of the things that they've lost, they probably should have tried to hang on to a little bit harder, especially the people moving into the area, new people who come in and maybe don't quite appreciate the existing culture of a place like Redfern and Waterloo. You had people moving into the inner city, sitting in their lounge rooms watching sport, not realising that we had this great thing here where you could get anything from 8 to 15, 16,000 people every second week, sometimes more than that, at Redfern Oval, and enjoying, again, that sense of community that can spring from the football. And they perhaps don't realise just how great it is to have something like the South Sydney Rabbitohs as a part of your community. And I think they kind of got the idea in 2014 when they finally won the comp after all that time, in that, it's a simple thing, but when the football team's doing well, it helps people feel better about where they come from and where they live. People say things like bandwagon fans and stuff like that, but I don't think that's fair. I think people love to attach themselves to something that's doing well, but that doesn't mean that they don't enjoy it and they don't become passionate about it. You're always going to have the support for the team ebb and flow depending on how well they're doing. But the great thing about South is it's got a core supporter base that's still growing, but has always been there. So, because it's a real intergenerational thing. The club's a real proper historic cultural entity. It comes from somewhere. It's not just put together by marketing people or someone decided to create a team called this or that. and then just advertise it. It's still a very organic thing, the football club.
Sinclair, a chip. He's going to get the ball. He has. He's off. Yes, Sinclair. Great individual try for the Rabbits. Grabbing first blood.
My first game here was a game against Easts, the Roosters. And it was one of those classic things where, you know, South were getting beat and they came back in the last 5-10 minutes. I remember, I think it was Paul Sate went in over from dummy half, and then Simsy had to kick the goal to win it. It was one of those sort of, you know, strange South things that seemed to happen. And I remember sitting at the northern end on the western side next to the grandstand, and I was right behind Eric Sims as he lined up the kick. And he put it over and South won, and that was it. I mean, it was just fantastic. And I remember the following week we went out to the cricket ground to watch South play Manly, and that was the game that's a bit infamous now because it had the Georgie Piggins, Malcolm Riley headbutting on the fight where they both got sent off. And again, we were in a prime position. We were in the ladies' stand, so we got to watch them both walking off, swearing at each other.
If it's high enough, if it's long enough, if it's straight between the posts.
Yeah, well, they made approaches, I think back in about 2014 when Souths were having a good run, or 2015, and they wanted me to go on and sing the John Sattler song. But I didn't want to do that. A lot of it is just because you don't want the song to be presented as a one-dimensional thing, as just about footy, because it isn't. And so that was one of the reasons. The other reason was that the show's it's pretty dodgy, so I didn't really want to go near it anyway.
And the tears rolled down like rashes the day John Sattler broke his jaw.
They're a football club or a sporting entity or whatever you want to call them, that are a bit of a throwback in that they still resonate a strong connection to the community. And I think that's because of the history of the club, the fact that they've still got the same name, the same colours, they're still centred in the same district, and they still have a lot of local juniors coming through that play the game and play for them. So, I mean, it's part of my earliest memories. You know, if you go back to the 70s to see some of those great sort of guys that played in the 60s, towards the end of their career, I'm sure, but and great memories of them. But I think guys like Inglis and Burgess, I think Sam Burgess and Greg Inglis would fit into any of those great South sides from the 60s and 70s. You just put Simsy on the wing and whack Greg at fullback, I reckon. And so, no, we're looking forward to it. It's great to be able to look forward to South doing well every year now, thankfully.